Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that, like the Philadelphia Phillies, are surprised to still be alive. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host Ben Samorka.
We still here. This is our house.
This is our house.
This is our house.
This is our house.
We're still here.
We are still here, and while we're still here, we're going to be talking about the coaching staff mix-ups.
Wow, lots of news. Wow,
lots of news. Gold Gloves and the World Series. If you have an idea for the opening joke, tweet us at Talk About Birds. Ben, we've got a surprising amount of information to talk about today.
My goodness.
A lot has dropped, but before we talk about that, I have to tell you about a good deed I did.
Wow. Don't hurt yourself, patting your back too hard.
I don't know why I just decided to tell you about this on air. This was not planned, but right. There's something that I did today. So we found a backpack on basically in our front yard on Sunday.
All right.
And we could tell that unfortunately it seemed like someone had probably stolen it from someone else and then dumped it, and so we found it because it was open and there was a MacBook charger in there, but no MacBook. And we're like, shit, so we're trying to see if we can figure out who it belonged to. And we found a COVID vaccination card. So we got the person's first name, but it was
so you're tracking them, huh?
Yeah. So I know all their, so now I'm holding it hostage, and that's the good deed I'm doing.
Okay.
But the name was really generic, and so we couldn't really find it through social media. So there was another piece of evidence in the backpack that gave me an idea of where this person might work. So I called the place today to see if they have an employee by the name of this person. And they did. And then they gave him my number, and he called me back an hour later, and I'm giving him his backpack tomorrow. And he was so grateful, even though I learned that there actually was an iPad and a MacBook in it. And now there's not. But there was a button on the front of the backpack that the guy was really worried about, and it was still there. So I don't really know to what end. I guess I'm just proud of being a little boy detective here.
Yeah,
got my big magnifying glass out and solved the crime.
Yeah, did you tell him to listen to the pod while you were talking to him?
Of course. And tomorrow, and when he comes,
always be plugging.
Yeah, always be plugging. When he picks up the backpack, I'm gonna snag his phone from his hand and subscribe and rate and review.
There you go.
Or I could say, I won't. Now you're here. This is your backpack. I'm not giving it to you until you subscribe to Talking About Birds.
And then when he subscribes, you'll produce an iPad and a MacBook.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll actually buy him a new one. Set back the Patreon by 8 years.
Good idea.
It's a good use of company funds.
That's, Nate, and I know you didn't say this. I know you're not fishing for compliments. You're not that kind of guy. Well, we could use more people like you out there in the world. Look at you looking up for your fellow neighbor, for your brother on this spaceship called Earth. You are just wow.
That is exactly what I wanted from this, Ben, and you walked right into it. So
I'm in awe of you, sir.
Well, he was very grateful. He said most people would have probably picked it up and said, fuck off to this thing. And instead we tracked it. Molly helped me with this too, of course. Yeah. We tracked him down. So, it was very little effort on other than my high-end detective sleuthing, but, ultimately it was not a lot of work and, helped out someone. So,
yeah, there's a 50-50 shot. I'm just tossing that into my neighbor's yard and going inside. So good for you.
He's lucky the MacBook wasn't in there, else I'm keeping that shit.
Oh,
Yeah,
baby.
no. So, but yeah, so anyway,
Thrilling.
that's what
Thrilling
yeah,
tale. Thank you. Yeah.
what a thrilling tale. Um, well, we are super good at scheduling our recording times, like, right before anything important happens regarding the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, how many times have we talked for a lot of our time about some topic only for like 2 hours after an episode releases or even gets on recording for them to make an announcement. Like
Yeah.
one that's I was remembering earlier, we spent like 15 minutes breaking down Michael Conforto, talking about why he would be a great signing for the Cardinals this offseason. We couldn't understand why he hadn't been signed yet. Like Cardinals go get him. We got done recording, and then like 2 hours later, it was announced that he had like crazy shoulder surgery
Yeah.
and was out for the.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Ended up
um,
not even playing this
not
season.
even
Never
playing.
even touched the bigs.
Yep. And but anyway, I say all this to say, finally, for once at least, we had the opposite happen.
Yeah.
Today, about an hour before we started recording, the Cardinals announced a press conference and a whole slew of things were announced. And really coming off the heels of something that had already been announced yesterday. So I guess we will start there and talk about Skip Schumaker, fan favorite.
Jared
hmm Jared Michael.
Schumacher. Jared Michael Schumacher. Yes.
Um, he is now the manager for the Miami Marlins. That poor man, but we wish him,
Yeah.
good luck over there.
Check. You peep this hat that I'm rocking today? The shout out to Skip.
Oh, there you go.
I'm rocking the
Nice.
'90s Marlins hat today.
Yeah, Florida
Yeah. I
Marlins.
mean, I think obviously disappoint. It's one of the. It's like I imagine if you're a parent and you send your kids off to school, that's intimidating and scary, but you're proud of them for doing it, right? Like that's kind of how I feel about Skip. Is he kind of went around, did a great job with Cardinals last year, and then immediately parlayed that into a big league manager job, albeit with a franchise that is I don't know where do you rank? How do you where do you put? I don't even know how to ask this question. What is the Marlins competitive timeline look like right now? Because I feel
Well, the
like that's a really
Marlins,
hard question to answer
yeah, the Marlins
and ask.
are. I feel like it was a pretty easy question to ask, and it was
Sure.
you struggled.
I got there.
Um, mm, but the Marlins are an interesting team because they have, in a lot of ways you can compare them to like the Pirates or these any other sort of bottom barrel team that just feels like they're constantly in the cycle of rebuilding. Except for the fact that they do constantly produce like star level
Yeah.
players. They just don't do it in bunches, or their m- ownership or management or whatever just decides to sell before they ever really get a chance to like amass these high level players. So it's a weird thing where like most of these teams that seemingly have like inept or ownership groups with like ulterior motives, like maybe the Angels. Um, the one thing the Marlins can do, it seems like, is develop players.
Yeah.
So, they have that new ownership group. They have their newer GM. Maybe things are going to be a little bit different in the long term for them, though it hasn't necessarily felt that way yet. But like, I don't know. It seems like a good team for a new manager. You have probably the Cy Young winner. They have a pretty good rotation, which might make some of those, pitching level decisions a little bit easier for him in his first year. I can see it working. I mean, not just with the Cardinals, he was a good bench coach with the Padres. He did the normal path. It feels like it was short for, I mean, he's still young. Felt like it was pretty short, only 1 year with the Cardinals, but he was with the Padres for several years. So, and I
Yeah.
think, remembering back to his playing time, it was always like, this dude is more about the like mentality of the game.
Yeah, yeah, gritty, gritty white guy for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think it's too crazy to say the Marlins like pretty vastly underperformed. I think what a lot of people thought they were going to do this year, right? Taylor
Yeah.
Rogers, Sandy Alcantara, some of their starting pitchers, some of those guys took a step forward, some of those guys took a step back. I thought that getting Jacob Stallings and getting Joey Wendell from Stallings from the Pirates and Wendell from the Rays are two very smart moves. They're kind of veteran guys, like very solid defensively to kind of guide the team forward and to lead that pitching staff. I thought that was going to be a great little team, or not a great team, but I just thought they were going to take a step forward. They took a step back. Um,
Well,
but
they
yeah, I guess
also
like in yeah,
sorry, to be fair to them too, I mean, as it turns out, the NL East was like,
yeah.
was, the most competitive in the NL this year by a lot. So they had to play the Braves, the Phillies, and the Mets more than anyone else other than the other teams in that division. So
I like Jazz Chisholm. They have some good players. I just don't see their path forward and how they're going. Like the Braves are going to be good for a decade. The Mets are going to be good forever because they have the most rich and spend crazy owner that we've seen in a really long time since a Steinbrenner. In the back in the day. Like I just don't see how they're. Not to mention, like you were just kind of getting at the Phillies are in the World Series. I just don't see how they're going to make a path, but I believe in Skip, I guess.
yeah, I mean, isn't that just how it usually goes though? You like whoever's at the top of the division, except for like the NL Central and the AL Central for like a decade now, it's always felt like there's some sort of stalwart at the top of the division, and it's gonna take like a fluke for somebody else to get there.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, what else are you supposed to do too? Like you
Tear it
can't.
down, rebuild.
That's all they're ever doing.
No, I know,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah. I mean, I this is a total tangent, but I do wonder if, like, there's a lot of, um, theory and hand-wringing right now about baseball getting rid of the, uh, like, now doing balanced scheduling and what that might mean for the future of, like, playoff brackets and whatnot, and the idea that that might be a step towards getting rid of divisions.
Sure,
And I guess one thing I hadn't really thought about until just now is like what that would do if you did get rid of divisions, which I'm not really a fan of, but like if you did, you no longer would have to be stuck under like a very specific team for a decade, you know.
sure.
You just have to be in the top six, which is how it was for a very long time. I know
Yeah.
that, but like they might be doing that also as an effort to like deal with the uh gaps between teams in the MLB right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to like all these teams have the ability to go get the guy that they want to. The Marlins could have retained Giancarlo, Marcelo Zuna,
Yeah,
and Christian
Yelich.
Yelich, and they would
Yeah.
probably still be competitive to this day, even as those players age with some of the pitching that they have, and they could have got. But it's the refusal to spend. And yeah, I'll just put a button on your tangent. I think I'm not, the only thing I feel strongly about is that rivalries are good. Divisions help create rivalries. That is something that should be encouraged. I think
Yeah.
that rivalries will still exist if they do abolish the divisions, but it's kind of nice how it's kind of just built in. Like the Cardinals will always hate the Cubs. That'll be a thing. But if we're not playing the Reds all the time and the Reds go down, is that really going to be something we care about? I don't know. Will another rivalry pop up? Maybe. Maybe it doesn't matter. But yeah. Anyways,
Yeah. I suspect rivalries will come mostly from playoff appearances and the outside, like, you're the fifth and the sixth team or the sixth and the seventh team, but there won't be those just like yearly, like the rivalry that we did have with the Reds probably never happens because there wasn't that push for first place
sure.
and then, all the stuff that happened within it. But I don't know. So, back to the original point though, it's good for Skip. That is now 4 bench coaches in a row who have become, a big league manager.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I know, one thing I was gonna say, on the parity thing, there is the insane discrepancy between top and bottom teams right now in baseball, but if the Phillies win the World Series, that will be 10 years in a row with a different team winning the World Series
Yeah.
in MLB. So, whether that's a good or a bad thing, kind of depends on how you feel about the best team winning the World Series. But I think it's generally a good thing that the championship element of it has been very spread out across a bunch of different fan bases. So,
Yeah, I agree with that.
um, but yeah, so Skip is out. Good for him. And that leaves the bench coach spot as an opening. And also, as we learned today, we need a new hitting coach and a new pitching coach. So, whew, a lot of
And a
openings
new bullpen coach.
and a new bullpen coach. Pretty surprising after a very successful season. You don't usually see a almost entire full house cleaning of your senior level uh coaching staff
After
uh
winning the division.
after winning 93 games in the
Yeah.
division, and especially for Ali to still be there. Like when these things happen, usually it's like we got them all out. We needed a fresh change. So, pretty surprising, but it seems like they're kind of all for their own reasons. I want to start with talking about the one that actually was the least surprising to me, if not still kind of surprising, which is Mike Maddox.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of thought this would happen multiple times already. Not out of any like he's good, he's fine. I think he has a good relationship with the org and with the fans and everything. He's just been doing it for so long. I had been waiting for something
Yeah.
like this. Like I'm ready to be done at the major league level, and to me, this is more of like a retirement so
Yeah.
to speak, than maybe what some of the other guys are.
He's 61 years old, and essentially what Mo said in the presser today was that he actually wants to remain in the organization. He'd like to maybe move into an advisory role with the club. He doesn't want to do the daily grind anymore. So we'll learn more of what that looks like. And I could see him being, a special assistant in spring training and maybe roving around the minor leagues at some point, but not, spending the 162 on the road, and then the playoffs, and that all makes sense to me. Yeah, like I just said,
Yeah.
he's getting older. I think it all makes sense, and I think you know everybody speaks highly of him, which is great. Jordan Montgomery, we talked about that a few weeks ago about the great kind of influence he had on Jordan Montgomery and the confidence building and all that. But yeah, I think he's an old school guy. It might be nice to get some fresh blood in there. I don't really have any direct complaints, but yeah, like I think, something we were talking about on the bird scored earlier today before we hopped on was wouldn't it be nice, to kind of get some type of pitching coach or leadership or however you want to phrase it that is maybe more adept at getting those younger guys to grow. We've kind of been complaining about that on and on, not even complaining, but just noting all season that for a while now, the Cardinals haven't really shown a great job at developing pitching at the major league level and getting guys like, that are in the minor leagues right now and Alex Reyes and some other names to be kind of regular big league starters, at least what we would think that their pedigree and their experience in the minors would lead them to develop into.
Yeah, we've been talking about that all year really, and it's hard to lay that at the feet of anyone. Sometimes it's just hard to pitch at the major league level. It's hard to develop pitching at the major league level, but it
Great
is
points all around. Yes.
thank you. It is, pretty interesting that like the entire Cardinals rotation this year, everyone that was considered successful in the rotation this year basically were not St. Louis Cardinals, other than Wainwright, who obviously has been
Is
doing it for 20
40.
years,
Yeah.
and Michaelis, which you could maybe call a success story, but I almost think of that as more of like the scouting department recognizing
Yes.
that what he was doing offshore was like highly competitive, and they brought him over and he's the same pitcher.
Yeah.
So like that, there's not really anyone that Mike Maddox could point to, I think, and say like, there he is. Like that's, I took him, or we, the organization, took him and made him a highly successful big league starter. You get you know, the bullpen is another story, but that is
Yep.
also just a totally different style of pitching. So I don't know. I mean, I think this is probably a good thing, even though everyone really likes him and he always seemed very, I think he fits that mold that we like as Cardinal managers, and Cardinal staff. But like, I'm kind of okay with this one. Let's get another guy in there. Let's see if a new approach will be what's needed.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like it, I'm not so deluded to the fact where I think that the pitching coach is responsible for the way in which the entire organization goes about pitching, but yeah, I think we're in line. Like a new voice, a more modern voice. Like I know this wasn't 1-to-1, but it pretty much feels like we went from Dave Duncan to Mike Maddox, and there's not really too much difference in that. And obviously, Dave Duncan was doing his thing, but um, and
Baseball
would
was different
arguably
then too.
exactly baseball was
Yeah.
different then, and we have more tools now. Use the tools, and yeah, I'm curious to see. I mean, I guess it's really hard to have too much an opinion until we know who they bring in, but I'll be curious to see who it is, if it's somebody from Ali's past, if it's, outside the organization, what that all looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is a high level, high visibility position. I assume they will be doing their due diligence on who they select. I don't think there is a clear next guy in line internally, at least not that I'm aware of. So
Ca-
we'll
Uh,
see.
Cal Eldred and Mike Matheny both need jobs.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what Matheny's gonna end up doing. Like we talked about him last week. Like, do you consider him a successful big league manager or do you not? Because he's now done it for like 10 years, which
Yeah.
is not common, but also he has been fired twice and really hasn't had a good team since like 2015. So I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, that 2015 team was so good that I could have led them to those, 100 wins or whatever. They were just a
Yeah.
stacked roster. I don't, yeah, I have strong opinions on that. Keep Mike Matheny out. He was a great Cardinal. Um, but, go retire or something,
Yeah.
or at least don't
Um,
come back here.
So let's talk about Jeff Albert. I think this is the story from all of this. I mean, we are quick reacting. This is
Oh,
our
yeah.
you don't get that a lot in podcasts. But we know very little. But it certainly seems like right now he quit because did not appreciate the fan base's general attitude towards him,
Yeah.
which let me just say, Ben, we got him. Who's up next, boys?
Did, did we?
No, I don't know. I've never I just wanted to say that because I thought
Yeah.
it might be funny, but
It might
ge-
be.
it probably isn't.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I mean, we're all aware of the Jeff Albert hate. Every time the Cardinals score like 0 or 1 runs in a game, you don't have to go very far to hear someone saying fire Jeff Albert. But I've kind of always taken that as a low researched take, and something that I've considered to be easily ignored, the fire Jeff Albert
Well,
mentality.
it's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. Like the
you,
the
I was like trying to think of other ways to frame it. Low researched, and
yeah,
it's stupid. So,
it
all
is
right,
stupid.
get it.
Look at the numbers. Like Tyler O'Neill had a breakout season with Jeff Albert being the hitting coach. Paul Goldschmidt, one of the best hitters of this generation, had his best offensive season this year under Jeff Albert. I could say the same thing about Nolan Arenado. Look what Albert Pujols did, literally hanging on Jeff Albert in the dugout every time they cut over, like they were working together constantly.
Yeah,
It just doesn't make sense. Hitters go up and down. The team had a top 5 offense this year. And Paul DeYoung is Paul DeYoung. Paul DeYoung is not recognizing balls and he's swinging through them. That's nobody's fault but Paul DeYoung.
yeah,
Maybe he can fix that, but you can pick out all these little individuals, but if you look back over, I think he was brought in was it 16, 17? I can't even remember now, but
Yeah, sometime around
if
then.
you look back, there have been ups, there have been downs, there have been some really bright spots, and there's been some negative spots. And I was kind of curious because like why all this hate has kind of been wrapped around him. And I went back and I listened to an interview with him on KMOX. It was the off season that he was hired with. I'm forgetting the guy's name from KMOX. Doesn't really matter. But he was talking about how he came out. Jeff Albert came up in the Cardinals organization and then left and then came back, and he was so excited to be back. And he was talking. His philosophy was analyzing pitch sequencing, finding, trying to basically trim down people's mechanics to be quicker to the ball, and mental preparation. Like, do we disagree with any of those? Like, what are we talking about here? Maybe it didn't work for every single person. In that interview, he talked about working with Buddha, and kind of that was a very big or a nice jumping off point, so that they were all speaking the same language because Budeska has been in the organization for 1 billion years. Um, but I just don't
Yeah.
understand where if somebody could give me a real factual argument of what he was doing wrong, I'm all ears. But it ain't out there, or at least I haven't seen it.
Well, Ben, Paul Goldschmidt had a pretty rough September, so I think, we you
Yes.
gotta get him out of there.
So,
No, I mean,
and my favorite take is that the first 5 months of the season is Jeff Albert's fault for him being so good, and the final month of the season it's also Jeff Albert's fault for him being so bad. I think that's my favorite take.
I think this more just speaks to just the average mentality around like leadership in sports and how like I mean, people were calling for Ali Marmol to be fired after the wild card series against the Phillies, and because who- that's you can funnel all your problems with a team into an individual. And so if you think that the Cardinals offense is struggling, then it's really easy to say fire Jeff Albert than it is to say release Nolan Arenado or something
Sure.
like that, right? Like you can with no consequence, you can say fire Jeff Albert, and the casual fans will be like, yeah, sure, fire Jeff Albert. And then like hardcore fans will be like, yeah, sure, fire Jeff Albert. I don't care. It doesn't matter that much. It's like a really safe thing to say and be real when you want to express your frustration on social media.
Yeah.
And so I think ultimately the most surprising thing to me from all of this is that Jeff Albert like cared,
That is shocking to me.
which I should say, like, we're all humans. I think we're naive if we think that people don't read these things and internalize it to some degree because it's a competitive thing. Everybody in this is competitive. Surely what you would love is to go look your name up and it be like everyone loves you. But that's just not the reality of leadership in sports. And like, I would have expected someone in his position to be pretty immune to that or like recognize that if it's causing those feelings for him
Well,
to be able to like not engage.
he was part of Bangate with the Astros. Like,
Yeah.
if those guys all got drugged through the mud, they continue to be drugged through the mud. The reason that all of America outside of Texas is going to be rooting for the Phillies isn't because the Phillies are great. It's because everyone hates the Astros. He was on that team. He was part of that whole thing. He can handle
Yeah.
that, but he can't handle. I find it absolutely bizarre. I'd love to hear it in his own words,
Yeah.
um,
That
not
is
kind of
where I think
translated through Mo. But
that's where
it's
I think
so
we're gonna
strange.
find out. I think we'll find out more that
Yeah,
like, I have to imagine that we'll find out more. I mean, because even the most fervent fire Jeff Albert, it's not like he was being pressed by reporters. Like for the most part, the Cardinal coaching staff is generally protected, and like Ali gets tough questions, but it's not like you have Albert being up there being like pressed by difficult questions. It's mostly just Twitter and shit. So it's
also
like
they were
turn it
like
off.
willing to reinvest in Albert. You know, like they were Mo talked about how he wanted to re-sign him. I know that there was some friction with him and Schilt that was kind of weirdly and lightly reported on last year, but Schilt's gone. So yeah, I find it very fascinating. I cannot believe a major league coach is leaving because of internet pressure. I just find that like I'm baffled by that. I'm baffled. Not only is that apparently true, but that was shared with the media. Um, I
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. And you know what? I guess we'll see. Maybe he follows Skip to Miami, smaller market as far as baseball fandom is concerned, and he can go down there and implement his changes and do his thing and be successful. But
yeah. Yeah, I mean,
bizarre.
he wouldn't be the first to complain about difficult media environments. I mean, that's everybody who plays in New York who has a single bad week complains about difficult media environments.
Joey Gallo had that breakdown earlier this year. Not a breakdown,
Yeah,
that's over dramatic, but he was. Yeah, I get that it's difficult.
yeah. I guess I just didn't think it was that bad here in St. Louis.
Right.
Like, like, yeah, it's a bunch of ding dongs on Twitter, but like that is the most easily avoidable group of people.
I
Um,
know.
yeah. So, um, but anyway, we got him. Um,
Yeah. Take a hike.
yeah.
I
So
hope whoever we get is good.
I know, big opening. I feel like that one, because it is such a system that they're trying to employ, it wouldn't surprise me if that's an internal promotion, even though
Right.
I don't necessarily know who would be the, the top um, candidate for that. But
I
like,
mean, probably Buddha,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Today that's probably the answer, but yeah, we'll see.
yeah. I'm on team Yachty bench coach, Pujols hitting coach,
Yeah,
Waino part time pitching coach,
sure.
and part time rotation.
Well,
So
yeah, and I'm sure you're extremely serious when you're saying that. But
yes,
my response to this is I think we should expand the coaching staff. I want to see a couple of hitting coaches added, a couple of pitching coaches. I saw I can't remember which team off the top of my head, but there's a team that just hired an offensive coordinator. Like, give me it, give me more brains in there, more information, more ability to one on one with the players to explain the information and how they can use that in a way that they can be effective. I'm all on board with that.
yeah, I agree. We talked about that last week, and I think we left off saying that we don't really know what the rules are for how many coaches you can have in the dugout are, and I think we still don't know that. So
Well,
we
I
are,
know the Giants had like 15 this year.
yeah, yeah.
So, I don't know
Well,
if there
yeah,
is a limit.
and it doesn't, probably matter that much if they're in the dugout versus like down in the clubhouse.
Right.
Obviously with Astros had their trash can observer down in the clubhouse forever.
Gotta
So
be that's a great job, right?
I feel
Are
like
you
I'd
are
be really good at staring at hitting a trash can with a bat.
yeah, if you're the trash can operator, are you making six figures or are you like an intern?
On the one hand, I'm like, you got to pay them well, or else they're going to turn on you,
Right.
But on the other hand, you know, like there's so many people who would just want to be there and want to be a
Oh,
part of it.
yeah.
You could totally exploit someone and say like, you're making $10 an hour helping or
Shut the hell
orchestrate,
up and hit this trash
yeah,
can.
hit this trash can when we tell you what to, yeah.
Uh,
I don't know. Let's see if we should get some investigative journalism going on and see how much um the person who was hitting the trash can was getting paid. Although I
yeah.
think it was a player, wasn't it? They would they'd often have a player down there just hitting the
Yeah,
trash can
I
for
don't
them.
know.
All right. Well, anyway, anything else on the coaching staff you wanted to talk about?
Ryan Eversgerd, who is a longtime bullpen coach, is being reassigned as a special assistant within the organization. I think my guess, this hasn't been said, but he's also kind of aging a little bit and is probably tired of the travel and the grind and all that. I also like I have to wonder if there is some flavor of this, not entirely, but I don't know, 10%, 20% of this is like Ali had a successful year and he kind of wants to have his guys. He inherited every single coach except for Skip. Skip was obviously on his way out and he kind of took this as a partial opportunity to bring in his own people to have his own kind of squad around him. So be curious to see how this all plays out. And I'm sure we'll learn a lot more, especially after the World Series. Generally, the MLB doesn't want you making all these announcements when the games are going on, but we have a whole week of no baseball programming, which I
And
was planning on complaining about
yeah.
later. But anyways,
Also, yeah, the MLB doesn't like it for you to make announcements during the regular season and or during the playoffs unless you just gotta fire your manager. You gotta get Mike Schultz out of there. You can't wait a few
uh,
days longer. You gotta get
yeah,
it done.
that anniversary is coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was the mid CS
Oh,
series,
you're
I
right.
think,
Yes. Yep.
when he got fired. Like, on the
By
day of it was, like, on the day of, like, a game 6 or game 7 too,
yeah.
because I know
Uh-huh.
they had asked special permission to make the announcement.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, well, I already kinda talked about it, but, that's a huge shakeup, and we'll see where it goes. I think it has a possibility to be good overall for the organization, as you said. I also hope for an expansion. But mentioned in this discussion, what I think we both agree is an objectively good thing is
Yeah.
that Adam Wainwright has re-signed. We don't know the details yet, but it's all going to be plus or minus 5 from what he was making last year, So
Yeah.
probably nothing too important for us, but
Yeah.
like we said last week we expected this to be answered by time we recorded next week. Got it in under the wire, was resolved like an hour before we started recording, but I don't know if there's much more to say than what we said last year. This does or last week. This does start to make the rotation crammed and start to build, I think, that permission structure that the organization is going to use to not go and sign someone like Rodon, which was our prediction. But at the end of the day, give me Wainwright. Like I'm
Yeah.
happy for it, and I think he's on this backdoor Hall of Fame path,
Yeah.
and these sorts of seasons are what are going to get him there. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue with it. It'll be happy. It'll be nice to have him back. I do think that you're right, though. Is it probably shuts the door as far as acquiring another starting pitcher. I would say that Quintana is probably is still in the conversation. I would not be shocked, but maybe surprised just because of like what's the status of Mats, what's the status of Dakota, what's the status
Right.
of Jay Flair. There's just a bunch of question marks out there. What I do think that this does is it bumps up catcher and outfielder, or I guess I'll say catcher and bat to be the priority of the offseason as opposed to a starting pitcher, which is interesting and I think somewhat exciting. And um, I'm not going to complain about the Cardinals having a better offense and a better catcher. So that's all fine and dandy. But yeah, definitely interesting. And like I said, changes the focus.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, this is one um big sort of domino of this offseason that we all kind of thought we knew what the outcome was going to be. Um, and here it is. So that's one down. The
Yeah.
next one is the Arenado question, which I mean, we got to milk this news for as long as we can because the one way or another, it's going to be resolved soon because he
Yeah.
has until 5 days after the end of the World Series to make a
Yeah.
decision. So we've, probably got it at most like another 2 weeks or so before we have definitive answers. But we did get a little bit of insight today. So Ben, do you want to share some of the insight we learned today?
Yeah, I'm just going to read. This is a tweet that came out before we started recording from a little tweet thread from Cardinals MLB.com beat writer John Denton. And I'm just going to read it verbatim. Arenado's decision to return or opt out of his contract said, I don't think it's about, this was Mo, sorry. I don't think it's about reworking the deal. It's about trying to, or him trying to use his time and sort through some things. He asked more questions on how we're thinking about the club, what we're thinking about in the future, and topics like how are we going to deploy our resources. It was a very positive conversation. Again, I am hopeful and optimistic that we can come to a place where we're both happy and have that understanding. He just wants a little more time to think through that. And then, like the ending of the tweet is like Nate said, Arenado must decide by 5 days after the World Series ending. So I think that's interesting. I've still the The renegotiating just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Nolan has the power. The Cardinals have the power at this very moment too because of the exclusive rights. Just just do it. Lock it up. That being said, if Nolan is, and I believe him because Nolan's got all the money in the world. We know that he's a psychotic competitor, which part of me does think is why he wants more money, just because he is a psychotic competitor. But we know for a fact, he said it ad nauseum, the reason he left the Rockies is because their inability to commit to winning. So it makes sense to me that when Nolan has a little bit of negotiating power, he kind of sits down with Mo, and I bet, knowing Nolan, I bet they went over the top 30 prospects. I bet that they went deeper than that. I bet they talked about what timelines that people like Jordan Walker and Mason Wynn are on, Tink Hence, all these superstar prospects that we've been talking about as the seasons wound down. I bet Nolan was really getting into it. When is Jordan Walker going to be up here? What do you expect from him? What's our competitive window look like? I imagine that is how those conversations went.
Yeah, and they should. Good for him. Like
Yeah.
he's about to commit essentially the rest of his highly competitive Major League Baseball time to a single team. He has the opportunity to check with every team, and he should be doing his due diligence with the Cardinals. And if he's not confident, he should opt out. I hate to say that because obviously as a Cardinal fan, we want him just to opt in and just take the contract as it is, buddy. But like,
Yeah.
no, no, he should do everything he can to ensure that he's making the right decision. And the Cardinals should do everything they can to prove to him that it is the right decision to stay. And I think they have a competitive argument, a compelling argument. I think like, I the expanded playoffs system and how random it is, I think almost works in the favor of the Cardinals, where you could say, like, sure, you could leave us and go play for the Dodgers. But as we've all seen, that regular season success has very little bearing on postseason success. Why not stick with the team that like has a clearer path with less effort to win the NL Central compared to
Yeah.
like an East or West team. I think
Uh,
there's a lot of arguments for why if you want to have a shot at a championship, the Cardinals are one of the best teams in baseball to be on.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to imagine, his what has he got? 6 years remaining on his contract, and I
Yeah.
guarantee you, he wants six more shots at the playoffs. And he's not stupid. He understands exactly what you're talking about. He understands the variability of once you get into the playoff tournament. Um, so I guarantee you, he just wants to make sure. All right, I'm going to have 5, 6 more opportunities. We're going to be here. We're going to be competitive, and then from then on, it's up to the players and doing what they need to do. Like
Yeah.
we've seen it play out like exactly what you're talking about this postseason. You just need to sneak in, and as long as you show up at the right time, you can be in the World Series against the
Yeah.
juggernaut.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know it from our own Cardinals experience as well, right? So yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, though, if you got a shot to go to the Dodgers, like it's hard to turn that down. They've won, that they will probably make the playoffs every year for the next 20 years. But anyway, I don't know. I'm hopeful. I still think the most likely thing is what you've been saying is the renegotiate. Like we might get a stressful moment where it's like some beat writers are going to fuck with us because they're going to say like Nolan Arenado has opted out and signed a new contract with the St. Louis Cardinals or something
Yeah.
like that. Um, and if not, Jordan Walker or Nolan Gorman, we still have, or go and get Trey Turner.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey,
Um,
I'm interested.
so I think we could talk about the stress and the various outcomes about Arenado for another 2 hours. But we'll pick it back up next week. So I think we got to move on, and we still have plenty to talk about. But before we do, and before we get to break, I have to ask Ben. I've been noticing you have a cast on your finger. What did you do?
Damn it. Ooh, uh, I okay. I don't know. Um, Damn it. I was in New Dork Shitty, as I call it. Roasted. That
Got
whole
it.
city right there.
Yep.
No, my dear cousin Steph married their beautiful wife over the weekend. We had a lovely weekend in Brooklyn, celebrating them and all that stuff. And we just had a lot to drink all 3 nights. It was a wine bar one night, and then we went to a rock and roll bar, and then it was the
A rock
wedding.
and roll bar.
It was called Rock and Roll Bar.
Oh, okay.
Um, and and then we had the wedding, and that went as it went. And then the next night, we had a happy hour that turned into a all night thing. Um, Anyways, one of the mornings I woke up and my finger was swollen and I can't bend it. And it's all purple and yellow. And it hurts. And I don't know if it's broken or if I just sprained it or if I just jammed it or I mean I don't know. It just doesn't feel good. So I've been putting a cast on it.
Sounds like you spent a much more time in the wine bar that morning.
Uh, I mean that was as good as New Dork Shitty. So I have no comment on that.
Okay. Well,
Just
good
drinking
for you.
orange wine in Brooklyn. How ridiculous does
Yeah.
that sound?
You deserve to break your finger.
It's my middle finger on my left hand too. I use this all the time, especially when
I'm
speaking with you.
I'm gonna guess that you lost the cork to one of your wine bottles and thought, "Oh, I have an idea," and you just stuck your finger into it, and then you couldn't get it out, and it led to you swinging it around and smashing the bottle over a table, and it broke
Yeah,
your finger.
like a bear getting trapped in a honey jar.
Exactly like a
Yeah.
bear getting which I know you have also gotten your hand caught in many honey jars over the years, so I would expect you to know how to handle this.
Well, I'm good at that. Let's good with the wine. It's.
Alright, I had to ask. So, thank you for, I'm not gonna thank you. You the people deserve to know.
Okay.
So, speaking of the people, this show is supported on Patreon. We have a bunch of different things out there for you on patreon.com/slash talking about birds. If you enjoy the show, support it, want to see us continue doing it and continue to grow, and just be a part of our community that we're growing, we'd love for you to consider subscribing at patreon.com/slash talking about birds. Patrons of any level get access to our private Discord. It's called the Bird Scored. We're having great combos in there. And it's been really bumping today as all this new news has been coming out. It's been a great place to sort of talk about it and get immediate conversation rather than just putting something out on Twitter and hoping that you get a response. We're on there all the time, as well as the people that support the show already are in there pretty frequently. So, yeah, check it out. And uh, on that, we are super excited to thank Steven, a new Patreon or new patron who actually is the first to come in at one of the higher levels that offers things like executive producer and the ability to come on the show to be a part of one of our games.
Wow.
So we're a little terrified about that, but I think it's going to be great.
Oh,
We're excited. Yeah.
I plan on wiping the floor.
Yeah, yeah, taunt our new patron. Frank, I'm based off of previous performance, I'm pretty much expecting you to get swamped by whoever it
Mm,
is at
hmm.
whatever it is that we do.
Sure.
So, so thank you, Steven. We really appreciate that. And we also have another new patron, which came in just today as we were recording. So that's fun. Mark
Wow.
Longden. So thank you, Mark. We really appreciate it. Got a really nice email from Mark too. It's just really, really nice. So thank you all
Yeah.
to the support that we've received and those of you joining the Patreon. We truly appreciate it. Um, outside of that, consider leaving a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. That helps as well. Ben, where can people find us online?
Yeah, shout out Mark and Steven. Thanks for joining. We appreciate it. You can follow us on Twitter at Talk About Birds. You can follow us on Instagram at Talking About Birds. And of course, you can email us at talkaboutbirds@gmail.com if you have any thoughts, questions, musings. If you'd like to bully me for having a broken appendage or anything that, these mean things that Nate says to me, if you'd like to pile on and pour the dirt on me, go for it.
Please do. I also wanted to point out that
Is that
the
good
nice
whining?
email we received, they sent to talkaboutbirds at gmail.com and also talking about birds at gmail.com, which is the safest way to go about it because we are stupid. And I
Uh,
was thinking about it. That one is because we also own talkingaboutbirds.com
we
at
do.
gmail.com. We just can no longer access it. And Ben and I both work in technology outside of this. You'd think like we
Yes.
know how to do them, and we are blacked out from or blocked out, maybe because we blacked out from the talking about birds at
It's
gmail.com.
asinine. I had like 4 service requests in with Google, and
They won't
they
give it
just
to
won't.
us. Yeah.
I could spend the
So
rest of the episode complaining about Google.
so it was smart sending it to
Ugh,
both. They both technically come to us, but we can only see talk about birds at gmail.com right now. So maybe someday we'll regain access to that old email
yeah,
address. So okay, so we want to touch on the Gold Glove announcements. Um I think last year the Cardinals set a record 5 Gold Gloves on a single team. That was awesome. We really did not expect that again. I frankly am surprised that there were 4.
yeah,
So we had the ones that were expected, Arenado, and Goldschmidt finalists, and then I assumed Tommy Edman would be on there somewhere, but he actually has been nominated twice, once in second base and once as the new utility uh, Gold Glove, which is a great addition. And then the big surprise, though not if you were really watching, but I think
yeah,
just how these things go, I think we were all pretty surprised that Brendan Donovan was also nominated or is also a finalist for the
right.
Utility Man Gold Glove. So the Cardinals have 2 of 3 people nominated in the Utility uh, Gold Glove award, which is really cool. And I'm excited for Brendan Donovan. I mean, ultimately what a fantastic rookie season for him. So,
It really was,
um,
and I guess, like, I'm curious if you're voting for the Gold Glove finalists, would you prioritize the fact that Brendan played in the outfield, third base, second base, shortstop, and first base, or would you value to the level that Tommy plays second base and shortstop? Like, if you had to, which methodology do you value higher for that specific Gold Glove?
I do think that's going to be interesting to see how this plays out with a new Gold Glove that like highlights the fact that these guys are all over the place. And already in the first one, now we have someone who's been nominated for both. So I
Yeah,
have to imagine that, like, as a voting group, people are going to basically made a decision on like voting for um, Edmund in one place and Donovan in another, but like enough people voted for Edmund that he ended up in both of them. But anyway, I mean, I think that's such a hard answer
yeah,
in this specific case. I think I would end up voting for Brennan Donovan for utility. And then I would vote for Edmund at second. I'm obviously being a little bit of a homer there, so that both Cardinals get a
yeah. Well, I
Gold
mean,
Glove. But like,
to be pedantic about it, like Tommy Edwin is more of a middle infielder. Well, you'd have to say Brendan Donovan is more of a utility player because he is being
yeah,
utilized everywhere. But yeah, I don't know. Interesting. I guess we'll
yeah.
find out.
That's why I would vote for Donovan because yeah, he played everywhere,
Yeah,
and we know he probably could have played. He probably could have played everywhere if it was truly a need.
yeah,
And Edmund swapped between 2 positions basically, but played them both at an elite level. So
right.
I think that everyone on this has a real shot to win. I think there's a good chance that the Cardinals end up with 4, but I think realistically it's probably 3. I suspect that Arenado, Goldie, and Edman will win somewhere, and then I'll be kind of surprised if Donovan actually wins. But
Yeah, Dansby Swanson had a very, very nice year at shortstop, so he might take that one from him. But yeah, we'll find out. But yeah, I
yeah,
totally agree.
it'll be really surprising if Edman doesn't win anywhere and Donovan wins the utility one.
Yeah,
But that'd be
yeah. There
cool
should
too.
just be an award for getting nominated for 2 different Gold Gloves. That's
I
wild in itself. I mean, first
yeah.
of all, that's first ever. I'm guessing. Well, I don't know if I should say that. Maybe we should look that up.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that too, but certainly there's been I think it's happened before. People have kind
Yeah,
of split the season between 2 different positions,
yeah,
like a Tommy Edman being nominated for shortstop and second base would be the equivalent.
right.
I do believe that that has happened, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. Again, everyone knows how well researched this show is. All right. You had a bit of like a Bozo the Clown quality to that laugh.
Making fun of my laugh, Nate. That
I
is
wasn't.
just
Now
not nice.
that is
Sorry
just
for
being mean.
expressing joy, Nate.
That is being mean to Bozo the Clown. What if I like Bozo's laugh? Yeah. Is
All
that
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Anytime somebody compares somebody to Bozo, it's always complimentary. So thank you, pal.
Yes. Alright, let's go on. So,
Yeah. Let's go on.
uh, the World Series is happening as everyone predicted. You've got the Houston Astros against the Philadelphia Phillies, 2 dynasties. 2 constant, how many times have we talked about the Phillies in the World Series? So this is what everyone was expecting. Um, Actually, I think it's an interesting matchup, right? You've got kind of the juggernaut, the team that does everything well
Yeah.
against the team that doesn't historically do everything well, but has been doing it all very well in this playoff series.
Yeah. I think, well, how does, like, we've talked about this a little bit, but I think obviously the Astros are the favorites, and I don't think there's really too much to dive into there. The only real point I want to make about the Astros is that their 1 through 7 is ridiculous, and there's not a bad pitcher on their roster. They can
Right.
deploy any of their pitchers, and you're never like, "Ooh, we're downgrading here." It's more just like, to which degree are we being awesome? Like Ryan Stanek threw like 60 innings out of a 1.7 ERA, and he's probably their second to last guy out of the bullpen, and he throws
Right.
close to 100. Like they're just stacked, especially on the pitching side. All that being said, Verlander hasn't had a great World Series history. I don't know. It's obviously a small sample size. I think it's like 48 innings of a 5 ERA, something like that. But, he can obviously turn that around. I don't really like the idea of betting against Verlander. But to take it back to the Phillies, I think like what we need to recognize is that their lack of depth is less of a problem in a series, although this is likely to be a longer series. Nola and Wheeler are as good as it gets, which the Cardinals learned firsthand. Um, but really, I think the differentiator for this team that makes them different from the team that they were in the regular season is Schwarber is absolutely clicking right now. We saw him hit one of the furthest balls in baseball against the Padres, 488 feet. And Bryce Harper is locked in Bryce right now. I know
Yeah.
you and I are both huge Bryce fans. We think he's great. Cardinals should have signed him, blah, blah, blah. But when he is locked in, I mean, he is top 5 player in the league. I know he's not playing, defense right now because of the elbow, but I still believe that. I think he is the best player going into this World Series. And there's some other players that we could argue a little bit about, but I do think that that's true.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Hall of Fame player in his prime,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. It's a good way to contextualize it. Yeah,
I,
he
I
good.
I don't know that there's anyone else in this matchup that you would call that yet, right? I think there's a lot of guys on the Astros.
Altuve, maybe?
I
He's
Altuve's,
out of his prime though, I guess.
yeah, and I think some of the Astros young guys, Kyle Tucker, Jordan Alvarez, um, these types of guys are on that path, but they're still really young.
Yeah.
Harper is smack dab in the middle of like this should be when he's the best, and he has been. He's got like a 1.5 OPS through the playoffs,
Yeah.
and he's great. And so yeah, they probably have the best position player going in, or best bat going in. Although
Right.
again, like the Astros are so good, it won't be surprising if Jordan out hits Bryce, or Tucker out hits Bryce, or
Yeah.
Bregman out. Their whole roster is stacked, but just going in, Harper's probably the best bat in the group.
Well, and I think, part of the problem that I think the Phillies are going to have, and Harper is going to have to do, is he's going to have to be patient Bryce. I think the quote that was going around after he hit that home run to win it for the Phillies, he took, if you watch that at bat, he took a unbelievably nasty power changeup from Suarez from the Padres, and then he belted the next 98 mile per hour outside fastball over the wall, took it. I think said one of the players on the Phillies said he patiented it up, which is
Nice.
I think a
Yeah.
fantastic all timer quote right there. But he's gonna have to be that super diligent, patient Bryce, because they're gonna want to pitch around him. They're not going to give him much to hit. He's going to have to hunt mistakes. But like I said, he is like 100% locked in right now. So I think he's going to have a great World Series. Um, Same for Schwarbs. We'll see what Castellanos can do. Uh, but I do see the route in which the Phils win, and that's bashing the brains in with all those power bats
Yeah.
they have, and Real Muto being a factor kind of all over the place. Um,
And Nola and Wheeler both pitched 18 innings.
Nola and Wheeler have looked fantastic. This was kind of going around the internet earlier today, but the last time Nola faced the Astros, which was about a month ago, he went 6 2/3 of no hit and then gave up a hit. So he has got some recent success. Obviously that could mean something or mean nothing going into this, but can be done. They have the frontline starters, and obviously they're going to employ them 1-2. You get up 2 games quick, or at least be competitive 2 games with the Astros, and anything could happen.
Anything can happen in a short series. Remember the 2006 thing that like riled everyone up was Tigers in three,
Oh
and
yeah,
yeah, we'll see how that went.
yeah.
Uh,
Ugh, yeah.
so yeah, it should be a good series. And don't worry, we've got plenty of time to sit and think about this series. Getting almost a full work week off in between
My God.
playoff baseball. They're so good at scheduling and just basic baseball management. Gotta love 4 days off in a game that's known for being played every day.
I don't understand. Like, I get that things were pre-scheduled, and I understand people fly for the World Series and everything like that, but like, we are. Uh, what are we doing? Like, I don't even see. There's no baseball programming for me to watch. Like, they should
Yeah.
be. I don't like
Well,
anything. Anything should be
football does
happening
it
right now.
well because football has a built-in week or even 2 weeks, in between, but they
Yeah.
do, like, Super Bowl week,
Right.
and, like, the players are out there available doing interviews, and it's this whole, like, hype week
Yeah.
leading into it. Like, if you wanna schedule in almost a week in between, like, the CS and the World Series, give us something to hype the World Series. Instead, we're all just like, okay, well, we just have to listen to the same momentum argument over and over and over.
Oh yeah. So if they both go in with no momentum,
Yeah,
what
how
what
does
does
this
that mean?
work?
Does the
Yep,
World Series just not happen? They play forever?
they're gonna have to play to 10, 15 games.
Yeah. Then so they
Um,
get the momentum, and then yeah, okay,
and
I get
then
it.
yeah,
Yep,
yep,
yep, yep.
yep. So it's here. World Series is here. It's almost the end of the 2022 season. I guess go Phillies because I don't want the Astros to win, but I don't feel
Yeah.
particularly good cheering for the Phillies either. But yeah, I mean they've got to be fan favorite by a million. Like it can't
Yeah.
even be close.
No. No,
So
America is of our Phillies fans this week for
yeah.
sure. And
Well,
I'm excited to see Bryce on the biggest
yeah,
stage. Like
yeah.
he gets so much crap. We've talked about this many times, but I think he's fun to watch. He's so good in the big moment. I'm excited to see him in the World Series.
People were booing him at I was at, game 2,
Mhm.
in St. Louis, and people were booing him every at bat. And it was like, is I guess it's just you're booing the best player on the other team during the
Yeah.
playoffs, but it felt louder than what that normally
Yeah.
is. I was like, man, people just don't like Bryce Harper still for no reason.
For no reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So all right, let's talk about some news that's happened around the league. There has been a few other pieces of news. So I guess you want to take the first one.
Yeah, I think, really quick, the Rangers, Texas Rangers, who took a step forward this year, but not all the way. They fired their manager, Chris Woodward, and he has been replaced with Bruce Bochy, which I think is pretty exciting. Obviously, three-time World Series winner with the Giants, was with the Padres and decently successful there. Um, Slam dunk Hall of Fame manager. I think as soon as he retires, 5 years, well, he's delayed that now, but 5 years after he retires, he'll be in the Hall of Fame easy. And I think this is an interesting signing because it's signaling that I think they're ready to play. We were talking about this a bit in the Bird Score today as well. Maybe they go get Judge. Maybe they go get DeGrom. Maybe they go get Trey Turner. Maybe they go get whoever they want to go get. They got a lot of money. They want to push in. They want to start winning. I think they want to knock the Astros out of the headlines. But yeah, I think it's pretty exciting, and I'm excited to see what else they do this offseason.
Yeah, it does make their firing of their manager make a little bit more sense to me if they had this in mind. Like, all right, we'll go and get Bruce Bochy. I get it a little bit more. It still was weird timing to me, but
Yes. Yeah.
whatever. You know. So yeah. And the last thing we want to touch on before we get to the games, uh been through this in the outline and I just have to I love it. So um Philly greased up their light poles before the Phillies, were expected to win the NLCS and head to the World Series. They knew it was Philadelphia, so they prepared by greasing up the light poles, which is so funny in and of itself and worth discussing. But then, did you see the video of the dude who still climbed it and was sitting up there and they were just throwing beers to him
Yeah.
and he was shotgunning him. They did 7 or 8 beers that he shotgunned, just catching beers on the top of this light pole, which is impressive because you have to assume there's some degree of
Unbelievably. Yeah.
yeah, some degree of inebriation to even consider climbing the pole, but enough dexterity to still catch thrown beers and not fall. And the cops were surrounding it because what do you do other than just wait till he falls and
Right. Yeah.
maybe try to catch him? But I don't know. Like I it's stupid, but I guess I kinda love it too. It's just,
Oh, absolutely.
like, what are we doing all of this for if not to go fucking buck wild when your team
Yeah.
finally wins?
That and also, like, the part that makes me just smile to myself and giggle a little, the idea of, like, a municipal worker gathering a bucket of grease and an extended, like, a paintbrush or whatever they're
Yeah.
like, foam roller, whatever they're using to then go grease up, before the game starts, grease up all these poles. That's no small task. That's a hard day
Yeah,
for me, that whoever that municipal worker is. So
and
power to them.
I have to imagine you have to spray it down at the end of the day too. You can't just leave, like, oil poles everywhere, like, they're gonna get so gross, like,
There's
bugs
some
stuck to
mayor,
them.
yeah, some mayor of Philadelphia is going to run on the principle of I'm going to put poles on the streets that are easy to climb.
They've got ladders built into them.
Yes,
You've got pro no, that's the kind of politics I can get behind. You got
hell yeah,
pro climbing and anti climbing.
without a doubt.
Yeah. So, well, what a hero that person is, and we support him wherever he is, likely in a hospital.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this episode. Before we do, we're gonna play a classic game, one that we've all come to know and love. It's called "Who Is This Guy?"
All right.
All right. Last time we played this, I famously got you with
Oh,
Royce
people.
Clayton.
Yeah, people. No one stopped talking about it. My wife
Yeah,
won't even speak to me.
yeah, rightfully so. And so let's see how you do this time. If this is your first time hearing this game, I have a series of clues starting incredibly vague and getting more and more specific. After each clue, Ben makes a guess as to who I am talking about. The only rule is that this person will have played at the major league level for the Cardinals. So
All right.
we'll go ahead and get started.
All right. Who is
This
it?
player, he's never tried that before. I almost fell for it.
Tee
This
hee hee.
player was born on February 3rd, 1980 in
All right.
Torrance, California.
All right. So not that old, but he could still be playing. He'd be very old, I suppose. I don't know which part of California Torrance is in. NorCal, SoCal, MidCal,
Mm,
East Cal, West
West
Cal,
Cal.
um,
Mezcal.
Mezcal. Um, okay, who's 42 right now? Um, it's not Matt Holiday. That's around how old Matt Holiday is. Oh goodness, it's just who is around Waino's age. I got nothing. Absolutely not. I mean, that's a super vague clue. I don't know even where Torrance, California is. Um, I will say a name of a baseball player, and that baseball player's name is I don't know. I have absolutely no
All right.
guess. Just
All
skip.
right. No guess. No. All right. Um, this person played 11 years with 11 years combined
Yeah.
with the Dodgers, Cincinnati, and St. Louis.
Dodgers, Cincinnati, and St. Louis. And he's only 42. Man, that is just does not sound like anyone to me. Dodgers, Cincinnati. Man, my brain is
You
completely
are.
wiped
I
clear.
know you're swamped today.
Nothing. I got skip it again or pass.
Okay. Wow. I don't even know what to do with that because we don't normally let you pass. But here we go. All right. This position player was more known for his versatility. Usually in this section of the sort of the game, I start listing off their accolades, their rankings amongst their peers in given seasons. Uh, this person had very few, but there were a couple. Twice he was in the top 10 in the NL in singles, and in 2010 he was in the top 10 in errors at second base, range factor per 9 at second base, and range factor per 9 per game at second base.
Hmm. I can think of. I don't know what's wrong with my brain. I can think of nobody in recent history who's played for those three teams. Um, and especially a fielding player.
So a lot of
Or a
singles,
position player. Yeah, yeah.
a lot of
Obviously,
singles.
not a lot of power. Okay at defense, kind of not great. I cannot think of anyone in that age range. Really blanking here. Chase Utley. I don't know. I got nothing.
Chase Utley never played for the Cardinals, and you know
Yeah,
that. All
yeah.
right. All right. So um facts 4 and 5 are usually intentionally goofy. So we know him by his nickname, but his parents went with Jared.
Oh, Skip.
Yes.
Um, he
It's
played for
good.
the Dodgers.
Yeah.
I did not know that, or I do not remember that.
Yeah. He went to the Dodgers and then Cincinnati, and then he was done.
I don't remember that whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'm also
Um,
shocked that he's only 42. I figured he'd be older than that, but no, I guess that makes sense.
what's funny is twice after these stats, you said, let's skip.
Oh, yeah.
And I almost was like, oh, you got it. But yeah, so Skip Schumaker.
God,
Um,
I'm looking at his baseball reference now. Played 1 year for the Dodgers, 2013. Did not know that. That just absolutely tanked everything. That was horrifying.
yeah. Well, I got you. Well, I guess you technically got this one since you got it on the fourth
It
guess.
didn't feel
But
like it though.
all right. Well, so now I just have to. So I have found your weakness. It's like slap hitting middle infielders. I got you with Royce Clayton, and I got you with Skip Schumaker. So
Yeah, you definitely that is my weak spot. I will agree to that for sure.
all right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Talking About Birds. Thank you all again for listening. Thanks again to our new patrons. We truly appreciate it. And if you're considering joining, well, please do. We'd love to have you. A lot goes into this show, and we really appreciate the support. Appreciate the support. We'll be watching the World Series, and we'll be back next week, as always, with another episode. And until then, I guess go Cardinals and go Bryce Harper.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Bye.